Oh, my first musical instrument was the flute. I studied flute starting in the 5th grade, and I remember I had a very hard time getting the embouchure because you know you have to blow across the hole, and it was extremely frustrating. And my dad, God bless him, he said, "Okay," I wanted to quit. He said, "Okay, try one more week, and if you don't get a sound after that, okay, you've given your best." And of course, within that week, I got a sound, and I play to this day. I love it. I'm classically trained, and I'm learning to play some of my own material, so I can play some more jazz kind of tunes. Yeah. Well, I didn't decide to use my voice. It just happened. It just came out. I came from a very musical family, and everybody would sing. After dinner, we would sing songs. My sister and I used to sing all the Broadway show tunes while we were washing the dishes. And coming from a Jewish background, our families always sang for the holidays. There's a lot of music in the culture. So I was always singing my whole life. I didn't take any lessons in vocal production until I was in college. My mother took me to see a vocal teacher when I was still in high school because I was in the choir and doing solos already. But the teacher said, you know, you're still too young, the vocal cords are still developing, so don't push it. So I always knew I was a singer, and among other ways that I could express myself, including the flute, and then I also studied piano, which was great, and I was a dancer as well for many years. So my whole concept of singing actually comes from the fact that the body is my instrument as a movement person, and it really worked out very well to transition into being a jazz vocalist and an improvising musician. Okay, both of my mother and father grew up in Brooklyn, and they were very poor, so they didn't have any lessons, but they were all very talented. So my mother always had a piano in her house, a broken down piano, whatever, and she played by ear. And my father was in operettas when he was in high school, so I really learned to love music through them, of course. I think most people do through their parents and the music that they hear around their home. So the great thing about my family is that everybody would sing harmonies. So it trained my ear, and it's interesting that, I mean, I could just pick up a harmony and add it to any song, and I've of course had to develop that as I've gotten into more sophisticated music. So that was a wonderful way to start out.
And
Well, when I was in middle school, my big brother Dan played the trombone. And you know, you have to choose an instrument when you're in the public school system, or at least you did when we went to school. My mother was the jazz lover. My mother loved big bands, and she loved Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald. So I heard that around the house. And then when my brother started playing trombone, I heard all the horn players too. So I was very familiar with Maynard Ferguson and J.J. Johnson and Kai Windig, all the big bands. So I really got a jazz education while I was studying dance. So I wasn't singing jazz, but I was hearing it. And as we all know, learning to listen is such a very important part about being a musician. People have asked me through the years so many times, how can you sing in tune? How can you do it? You sing some big intervals and leaps and you're still in tune. And to me, that's just part of learning to be a vocal musician. I always had to learn to listen, to tune it up. And I realized that not everybody gets that advantage when they're young, to train their ear. My first paid gig was a church in Philadelphia. I grew up in Philadelphia. Uh, uh, there's such a jazz uh, tradition in Philly. There were a lot of clubs. I used to sneak into the Showboat because I was under the drinking age of 21, and there were so many great musicians there. I was too young to know the Heath brothers, and I was gone already to New York when Christian McBride came on the scene. So I did have a number of church jobs for which I got paid to sing classical music primarily in a variety of different denominations of churches. So that was wonderful. That's one of the ways that I made my way through college.